budget will allow. The alternate will be to develop the kitchen cafeteria wing right in here. It will also mean that we will demolish the existing 8 classroom right here in the heart of the campus here. We will also then demolish the existing cafeteria building located right here. We'll also expand more teacher parking area in this area right through here. And just some floor plans just showing you that we'll have about 12 classrooms per floor on this 2-story addition. Here's 12 right through, yeah. There'll be 12 right in here. This is the 2-story classroom addition. And we only really demolished 1 wing right here, so this is 7 classroom wing here, plus the 9 portables. That's 16 classrooms, plus we're picking up an additional 8 classrooms throughout the school. Here's the design, adding on the kitchen, cafeteria, and computer lab right in here. And it will mean demoing this existing 8 classroom wing to be able to start the construction. So we will be able to demo that wing and accommodate all the kids in this 2-story classroom wing once it is finished construction. We can't start this construction until this 2-story wing is complete. This is just an image at the lower end of the 2-story wing where the pickup car drop-off pickup will be. There'll be a canopy right through here that will protect students as they get picked up in this queuing line. This is the existing admin in the wing up top of the hill. But there's so much fallen land on that site, we're able to do a nice 2-story addition without having to do much grading and filling. This is another sort of aerial image of the kitchen cafeteria wing that's right in here. Here's your existing kindergarten wing here. Here's the existing admin wing here. Here's an existing 10 classroom wing that will remain. The master plan calls for eventually, whenever that happens, is for this wing to be torn down and a new administrative area to be built in this area right through here. So, budget-wise, right now our base bid construction hard cost is right around 11.3 million right here. In fact, figuring in the soft cost, we have a budget of approximately 14.3 million. And then with a contingency of 750,000, so we're right at about 15 million, which is the initial budget, I believe, that was approved. We feel like with the estimates we've been getting that we're going to be coming in under these numbers. So the hope is that budget-wise we can afford to move forward with kitchen cafeteria wing. Our hard cost, construction cost there is 4.4 million. Soft cost is 900,000 there. 5.3 construction budget right there. $250,000 contingency. Sorry, I got the point I couldn't talk. So I'll put it back on.
No problem.
Questions?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Mr. Smith.
Back where you were talking about shared sites, you had cafeteria and computer lab, big shared. Would you explain that to me, please?
No, it wasn't a shared. It wasn't a shared space. It was. Here's your computer lab right here. This is just the new wing that would be built right here.
You had it listed as a shared,
Shared space.
and I just, that kind of bothers me, but if they're not gonna be in shared, then it's not a problem.
Well, we list it that way because I think it's a space that different classes use, whether it's first grade, fifth
Okay.
grade, whatever.
Got it.
That's what we mean by shared
I got it.
space.
I got it.
Mr. Crane and then Mr. Golden. Go ahead, Mr. Crane.
Thank you for the updates. And the work looks great as always. I'm the infamous, I'm gonna ask you about numbers person.
Okay.
So, the numbers that we were basically approved back in the spring was somewhere in the tune of 18 and a half, and now we're closer to 20.
Right.
In terms of millions. I realize the construction costs have gone up and cost of construction goods have gone up.
Mhm.
Haven't done some much minor projects to this. The chicken house isn't the same as the schoolhouse. But things have gotten more expensive. Can you just speak to that? If we're being asked to essentially approve $1.9 million more dollars.
Yeah, I mean, some of it is material cost of, with the COVID, it's kind of a double-edged sword here. Things have slowed down, but they've slowed down to the point of materials are hard to get. So that's causing a lot of your products to go up in price because there's a little bit of a demand for it because they can't make it fast enough. So it's a little bit, it's something I haven't really seen in my 40 years of construction and architecture. So this is a little bit different. So we feel like though, we're not for sure, but we feel like the labor costs may be coming down on some of the schools because of, we're now sort of, everybody's working off their backlog. I can't tell you that for sure, but material costs seem to be higher, but we feel like labor costs may be coming down. That's why we feel like we're gonna come in under budget. And we can't, you never know till you bid it.
Right.
But we got two things going here. Usually they go hand in hand. You know, usually when things tighten up and the work slows down, material costs come down, labor costs come down. But now it's a little bit different. You got one coming down, one going up. So, another item since the last design development budget was, I mean, we got into some more extensive site work here, but working with the city of North Augusta, some of their requirements. We ended up having to add a detention pond, so that's added some cost to, a lot of it actually has been in some of the site work costs. That's probably is $1 million since the last design development. And it's only because of developing the drawings, working with the city of North Augusta, getting their feedback and what they're requiring. So, but yeah, there's at least $1 million more site work that we didn't have budgeted in the original design development.
Right. I knew we had talked about some of the site elevation issues and whatnot before, so that's not necessarily a surprise. Can you remind me, if we approve this, when's our starting timeline?
The start timeline is the hope is that we can go out and bid maybe by the end of this week.
Okay.
And take bids around maybe the 1st of October or second week in October. Kevin can maybe speak on that better than I can, but that's the hope.
I'm just curious how far we'll be with coronavirus, if that might neutralize some of that, but just that was a curiosity question. So thank you, that explains that.
Appreciate it. Yes.
Mr. Bolton, go ahead.
I too thank you for the presentation. It was very good, very detailed. And I understand the elevation changes in that area, and I'm glad that worked out to our favor in this case. But
Yeah, it did.
That cost a lot of money to deal with that. I just have two questions. One, and this relates to issues we've heard from homeowners in the area of the school. It looks like we've got a 6-lane car line going in, 145 cars. Did anyone do a traffic count, like to understand what we had at this point? Because we were getting numerous emails and contacts from homeowners of people parking in front of their driveways and blocking their driveways.
Yep.
And do we think the 6-lane and 145 cars will take care of that?
Yes, we, Austin Hildebrand commissioned an aerial drone study at the peak hours of pickup time, 2 o'clock, 2:30 time. They did a traffic count at that point and came up with that number. Kevin, I think, has that number. But we developed it so that we could get this count from about right here all the way down here will get all the cars off the street.
Okay.
Now, whether they choose to come off the street, I can't tell you that,
Sure.
but this will accommodate all of them right here. This is where our car pickup line right through here is. So, we call it sort of the Disney World, parking. We feel like we really didn't have any ability to wind drives throughout here to have that long length. And so we met with a DOT official, 2 weeks ago, Kevin? We finally got him on site. he's a fellow that likes the long and windy roads, and we felt that we don't really have the ability to do a long, windy road here, so, he's bought off on this, and so we've, this should get all the cars off the street if they choose to get off the street, so.
Okay, thank you. The only other question is related to that. What would be the interim plan, you know, while this is being done? Are we gonna continue to have the pretty major buildup on the streets in the area during that time? Is there some sort of mitigation?
During the construction of this two-story addition, yes, we will. I mean, we can't alleviate that, right now. And we actually, we would like to put this into effect, but if we are able to afford to build this kitchen cafeteria, then we really won't be able to put this into effect till after it's finished, because we need this area for teacher parking.
Okay.
This area right back here will all be taken over by construction traffic and equipment. So we can't develop this parking here until this is finished. So we'll really have to leave this teacher parking in place. So really, it'll be 2 years until this comes into effect. Yes, sir.
Would you explain how this stacking line is going to work?
Yes, sir. It's all one-way traffic right in here. There's 3 lanes of traffic coming here. This will be teacher, visitor parking. They'll come in here, can park in this area right here, park along here. 2 lanes will come in here, then they will disperse. There's 6 lanes right through here. There'll be a teacher stationed at this point right through here. And, oops, sorry. Teacher will be stationed right here at this point. They will be queuing, given 2 lanes to queue. They will move out into these lanes right here. Once that's filtered through, the next 2 lanes right here will go, filter in, and then the last 2 lanes right here will filter go. So it'll take a teacher right here. There'll also be a teacher stationed right here to load, the actual loading. This teacher right here will direct the traffic right through there. So I think it's one of those things, the first week, it's probably, as opposed to anything, you got pandemonium, and then after about a week, everything settles down, people know how to do it, and it works.
We did the same thing at Mossy Creek, and it works. After the first week, Mr. Scott, it's
Yep.
like time work.
Yeah, it's just learning. Everybody has to learn, and that first week is the hard week, and everybody's, it's not gonna work, and then all of a sudden, everybody falls in line and know what to do, so.
I think Mr. Nessel, you had a question.
Yeah, my question's actually for the district. So I did go over, just so you know, I did go over to Hammond Hill after dismissal on Monday so I could see this, and there's no question about the need. What I'm wondering about, so we're talking about, Mr. Traxler gave us some numbers, that this school year, the next 2 school years, we've got money set aside in 8% funds to deal with helping the referendum projects, which is good. But we're talking about using essentially 48% of that, those specific line items for 1 out of 5 projects. So basically 50% on 20% of the projects. And I just the other projects are already kind of in progress mostly. I wanted to get some sense from the district on if we anticipate using these line items from the 8% funds on the other bond referendum projects.
Well, as you said before, we do have the 8% funds that are available to use for this project, but we do have several other ways potentially to fund the remainder of the project as well. And Mr. Traxler can go through a little bit of the different options that we have available to us.
Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, board members, Mr. Lawrence. So I did include a memo in the purple folder tonight, understanding full well that we still have to go out for bids, and our hopes are that those will come in lower than projections. We presented some options. We did anticipate that the 90 million would work in some collaboration with our 8% funds, and we did set aside, it's a very generic line item in the 5-year facilities plan. 2018 project support or something like that. So it wasn't earmarked for a specific project, it was just in anticipation of a potential need for projects. In the event that those 8% funds weren't needed to assist those $90 million projects, what we're calling the 2018 projects, it could be repurposed for something else. It is difficult at this point. Millbrook came in below, Belvedere came in below, Mr. Chipman. Okay, where is it?
I can't remember exactly, but I think the numbers came in lower than the original estimates as well on both of those projects.
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking there. Midland Valley, off the top of my head, I think might have been up a little bit. But what I've shared in this purple folder, and the point is that we do have options. We are still trying to finalize some numbers. And we'll have better numbers, it sounds like, in early October, but there are several options here, including each year we bring the 5-year facilities plan to the board for updates. We always have the ability, as a 5-year plan, to amend, to shift things between lines as needed to accommodate these projects if the board gets the bids and if the board determines that it wishes to move forward with the alternate one in addition to this base package.
Okay. So what I thought I heard was then, so I think it was very wise and excellent that we have a contingency basically built into that 5-year facility plan specifically for these projects. That was particularly wise. And I was just trying to get a sense if we thought the 4 other projects would need much of that contingency, because what I heard was probably not, and 2 or 3 of the projects were under budget. And so that's good, because what I don't want to do is we use these 8, right, you know it better than I do. I don't want to take that away from someone getting a new roof or some other higher cost maintenance item that we pay for out of these 8% funds. So I had a little bit of confidence there. The other question I had is more kind of based on how the documents are written. So what we have listed here in phase 1 in the base bid is what was voted for and approved in the bond referendum. When we get to the alternate or phase 2, that wasn't specifically voted on. That's why we're doing it with 8% funds. But I didn't know if we could use, if phase 1 came in under budget, if we could use it on phase 2 or not. And I think the answer is no, but I need somebody to tell me that.
Well, the language in the bond referendum, and I'm not looking at this off the top of my head, but it was general enough to allow all of this if the funds allow. I think it was probably worded Hammond Hill Elementary renovations and additions, or renovations, additions, and expansions, something along those lines. It wasn't specific to a 2-story building on the current playground.
All right.
The one project that I didn't mention is Highland Springs. It's the 5th. It would be the last among that group. So of course we started some preliminary work on that, preliminary planning stuff. But that's the one that's a little bit further down the line out of the 5 projects, and I didn't address that a second ago.
Thanks.
Yeah, the referendum was pretty general, and it would cover as much as we could do for that $15 million or whatever.
I got you.
Okay. Dr. Bradley, go ahead.
I'd like a very simple explanation about how you arrive at these cost figures and why they keep changing. I assume that you set aside $90 million. How do you come up with the $90 million? Somebody has to just estimate
Yes, sir, I think just based in general, thinking back 2 years to the estimated cost for, renovations and additions at an elementary school, or in part of it too, knowing that if we were limited, a little bit, but, and this may be more of a Mr. Chipping question, but looking at the cost of construction at a high school and the areas that we're doing at these schools, classrooms versus a kitchen area that may be more expensive.
But anyway, the simple answer is you come up, our staff comes up with a number.
Yes, sir.
It's an estimate of what this project would cost.
Of that 90 million, we estimated that Hammond Hill 15 million, and that's the one off the top of my head. Midland Valley, maybe 20 or 25
Let's
million.
just keep it with Hammond Hill, 15 million. You say this is what it costs to do Hammond Hill, but that's an estimate by our staff.
That's an estimate by our staff, but in the ballot question, it didn't specify 15 million for Hammond Hill. It was just, these are the projects, this is the work, a general description of the work ongoing at those for 90 million.
Yeah, but you got, where did you come up with the 15 million for Hammond Hill? Whatever it was.
Just based on the estimated cost of renovations,
Okay.
yes.
All right, then we come up with a second number of 18,685, 345. That number comes from the architect doing a plan and applying a square foot cost or what? Where does that number come from?
Which number you referred to, Joe?
The second number, whatever it is. The one that we,
And that was the last DD
Is that
phase where
the number?
our total budget was at
we voted
18.6.
in March
Right.
to up the ante.
Yeah.
That number, whatever we went from is the first number that we went from was what the staff came up with. The second number came from where?
That number came from our professional cost estimate around Greenville.
Okay.
So that was the number we got.
And that's an entity that exists in and of itself. It doesn't work for you or anything. He's
Yeah,
just.
he is a
Okay.
separate entity, not.
All right, now we're on a third number.
Right.
Where did that come from?
Same cost.
Same
estimate.
cost estimated?
Right.
And the reason is a $2 million increase or $1.8 million increase is because prices went up.
Material prices gone up, plus, as I said earlier, the site work cost here, there were some things not totally spelled out in the design development drawing site work, that added probably $1 million in terms of site work. Just for example, right along here.
I just think it's important that I and the public understand clearly what these numbers, we sit there playing checkers with a bunch of money. I'd like everybody to understand why we're having to keep raising the cost of this project, to the tune of about $5 million. I don't have a problem, I just want a clear explanation as to why that's happening. The second question I've got is, I think I heard in answer to Mr. Nessel's question that we do project some growth in the Hammond Hill area and we might need to do additional classroom. Did I hear that or did I dream?
No, these are the additional classrooms.
Do we expect any growth in this area that would necessitate additional classrooms?
Yeah, our population study that we did in 17, indicated that there was going to be continued growth in the North Augusta area. That's the reason for additional classrooms at Hammond Hill, Belvedere, and the addition of Highland Springs.
The reason I ask that is we're tearing down a wing that's got 10 classrooms in it, or some number of classrooms. Are we sure we want to do that? I mean, is the condition of the building such that it really needs to go, or?
Well, I mean,
I see Kevin shaking his head up and down.
Yeah, I like Kevin, he's dealing with a 1950s facility.
Built
Okay.
in the
Just asking.
50s. It's-
Just asking.
it's-
I don't like to see us tear down the building and then have to come back in 5 years and either rezone or build more. I'd rather build more than rezone. I'm adverse to rezoning. I think we need to do long-term planning in our building program to prevent rezoning to whatever extent is possible. You know, it's a major disruption for people, and we experienced that in every one a couple of years ago, and my phone still rings about that occasion. So, enough said, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bradley. Good questions too. So, yeah, and just for everyone's information, when we did that study back in 16, 17, it identified some growth areas and where we needed to add classrooms. And all these 5 projects took that study into account. So we did add some classroom space on all this too. So good, good. A question on the existing, what's going to be left of the first grade classrooms wing right there by the drop-off loop? Yeah, right there. Are we doing any renovation in that?
It's, the HVAC has already been renovated there, been added there, last couple of years over there. We are replacing all the, fire alarm signals and strobes, devices and system in that wing. That's pretty much all we're doing at this point,
Okay.
so.
And that'll be the only part of the existing 1950s building, I guess,
Correct.
that'll remain then. Okay.
That's correct, yeah. If we're able to build this, and that wing that's right under there, see dotted in yellow, will be taken out, and the, previous, base bid, the 7 classroom for sure, gets taken out. There's 7 classrooms right in this wing, so.
Yeah, I like the design. It looks like it's very good, and it looks like it'll be useful, and I like the car drop-off. I think that it'll work
Yeah.
good after everyone kind of gets in sync with everything.
Yeah, I think we solved a lot of problems, issues there.
Any other questions? Good questions, everyone. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Mr. Scott. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Looking forward to October.
Yes, I do too.
All right. Moving on with the consent items. The next couple are awards of grant money that we had applied for some time ago. So the first one is for Aiken Intermediate School from the South Carolina Department of Education Innovative Arts Works Grant for $4,000. So it's for the arts program at Aiken Intermediate. The next one is also from the Innovative Arts Works Grant to Paul Knox Middle School, $4,000 for the arts program. Number 4 is a little bit different. It's for the Area 3 Elementary School Media Centers. You can see $3,000 from the Central Carolina Community Foundation. So that'll be used for books and other materials for our media centers in Area 3. Number 5 is Mount Pleasant Baptist Church donation to Ridge Spring Minetta Middle School, $1,200 for materials and student supplies for our students there. Number 6 is the Rotary Club of Aiken Community Service Grant to Byrd Elementary, $1,500 for books and other materials for the school's media center. So those are all grants that, or monies that we're getting as donations. The next one is the next 2 are actually from the South Carolina Arts Commission, and it's also for arts type materials for East Aiken School of the Arts for $10,000. And the next one is for New Ellington Middle School for $10,000 to support the arts. The next one is the submission of a grant request for John Deere Project Lead the Way. It's a computer science grant, and we're trying to apply for $10,000 from the John Deere Corporation. And that's all the consent items. Any questions on those? All right, all those in favor of the consent items, raise your hand. Any opposed? That's unanimous. All right, moving on to individual items, and all these have to be voted on individually. The first one is personnel appointments. We had an attached list in our package. Do I hear a motion for that? So it's been moved and seconded that we approve the administration's recommendation. Any discussion on this? Mr. Nessel, go ahead.
Just before we move on, I'm thick-headed. if someone could explain what is meant by the classified positions that are new allocations and what the transition is there.
We'll ask Ms. Hart to address that for you.
Sure, so, Chairman Liner, members of the board, Mr. Lawrence, we were awarded the grant to be the provider for Head Start and Early Head Start. That was already in operation. We were assuming operation. So we are onboarding about 81 employees to run those sites. So while it's listed as a new allocation, it's because of and directly tied to that grant.
Yeah, those people are already doing that job, just not through Aiken County Public School District.
Correct. So in most cases, yes, some may choose not to make the transition from the prior provider to the current, but there are existing positions under that grant supporting those existing sites. And we're onboarding those individuals to Aiken County as the grant provider.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Mr. Smith.
I've asked this before and I've been given the answer, but I just want to reaffirm that it's still that way. These folks that we're hiring to run the Head Start program, the folks that we're hiring to run the Head Start program are going to be paid out of those grants, correct? Not out of our budget.
Yes, sir.
That's still the way it is.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to accept the personal appointments. Any other discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? So that's unanimous, Kim. All right, the next one is out of district transfer request. We had one, this is a transfer into the district. I think there was one person listed on that attachment. Do I hear a motion for that?
Make a motion, we accept the district transfer request.
Second that.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded that we approve the out-of-district transfer request. Any discussion on that? All those in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? That's unanimous, Kim. All right, the next one is the second reading of the accommodation for breastfeeding mothers, our policy GBGAA. Need a motion on that?
Make a motion that we accept the second reading.
We need a second. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. We accept the second reading. Any discussion on that? Mr. Nessel, go ahead.
And I apologize if this should be obvious, but when it comes to folks that maybe are paid by the hour especially, are they basically having to fit this into their break time, or is this paid time when this policy is being used?
So it is not paid time, no, sir. We would, of course, encourage them to try to work that into normal break times. However, feeding schedule may dictate otherwise, and we're required to accommodate that.
Okay. But it's, because I thought that's the way I read it, it's not paid time.
No, sir, it's not.
Okay.
Any other questions from Ms. Hart? All right. Okay, so we did have a motion and second, so all those in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? All right, so that's unanimous, Kim. All right, the next one is consideration for 2 additional computer technicians. Mr. Traxler or Mr. Lawrence?
Yeah, I'll have Mr. Traxler and Dr. Murphy to provide some background on that.
Good evening again. I just wanted to bring up the fact that, based on the alterations or the changes that we're making to our educational program, the scope and the amount of work incurred by the IT department has increased exponentially. So right now, we're currently working through 1,000 work orders in the work order system. We have processed approximately 900 since last Monday. If you take all 15 school-based tech staff, that amounts to currently about 1,700 devices per tech that they're supporting. And we're about to add an additional 10,000 devices. So you're going to take your devices per tech staff up to approximately 2,441 devices supported per tech. So to say that we're going to need some help, and in order to sustain this, we're going to need some help is a big understatement, but 2 is going to be a good start, and I'll be back.
may have just answered my first part of this question, but, I was around, and I know Mr. Liner was around, and many of you in this room were around when we had tremendous problems keeping teachers online, keeping equipment up and going because we just didn't have the staff. And there was a lot of displeasure out there amongst our own people and the community. And slowly we worked to the point where we're handling it pretty decent. But with the addition of 10,000 more iPads that are gonna be carried around by kids and students, I'm questioning whether 2 is enough. I don't wanna go backwards the way we used to be. And I'm sincerely questioning if 2 is enough, because after several weeks, they're gonna start coming in, it's not working. We're gonna have to try and rotate them in and out as quickly as we possibly can. I'm not second guessing anyone, but I am trying to offer an avenue for somebody to come in and say, we really could, 3 would be wonderful. And again, I just don't want us to go back where parents are fussing because the kids doesn't have the iPad, it's in the shop. Teachers aren't being able to reach them because they don't have, I don't want to get back to those things.
Right. And my staff is currently working on nights and weekends, working around the clock now, and this is, again, the deployment phase. This is not the maintenance and infrastructure phase, but we're trying to maintain these folks. And so we're gonna be announcing a couple of initiatives pretty soon with the phone hotline that's gonna hopefully get some level 1 support immediately to customers. But you're absolutely right. This first offer here was a cost neutral option that we saw that was available, but going forward, we're really gonna have to have some more staff.
I agree.
I think Mr. Crane and Mr. Moulton.
Thank you, Dr. Murphy and Mr. Pensil. I know to the point that Dr. Murphy just made, I know the staff's been working nonstop. I would kind of echo Mr. Smith took the wind out of my sails just a little bit. But you've addressed that, the 2 is a starting point. And with the number of devices and campuses being serviced by our existing folks, I would appreciate looking into that in the future, adding some staff there, because I know we need it. But I would support this, and I appreciate y'all bringing it to us.
Go, Mr. Moulton.
As a reminder, in the original budget, we did add 2 techs in the original budget that was approved in May. Yes, sir. So if the board approves this, it will be 4 new techs that we've added for this year. We've already filled the 2. We may have the need for some additional ones. That's always something that Dr. Murphy and Mr. Pensil can evaluate too, and if there's a recommendation that needs to come forward. But I did want to provide that reminder that we approved 2 back in May. They were hired July-ish.
2 weeks ago.
Okay, so, but they were effective July 1, and this will be an additional 2.
Mr. Moulton.
Dr. Murphy, thank you. I think you addressed a lot of this already, but I think I want to sort of echo what I'm hearing from a couple other board members here. I've been watching this for a while, Mr. Pensil. I know there's been issues with short staff in that department, in IT, most of which would never tell you that, most of which they're gonna work and they're gonna get things done. But if I understand correctly, we're gonna go to almost 2,500 devices per technician.
Yes, sir.
And if I also understand correctly, and I may be wrong on this, I think most districts are about 500 per technician. That's a pretty big difference.
You're absolutely right.
And if that's a difference, I'm just letting you know I support going for more than 2. And if we're using CARES Act funding, we've got a lot of devices we've ordered, I think 13,000 laptops, which are, I think, more time consuming to take care of. And so all of that said, if I'm right, and I don't know that I am, but if it is, I think, certainly you've got some ears bent your way on trying to get more staff for the IT department. That's all. And if you want to elaborate, but I think I understand the need. I think 2, you said was gross understatement, so I would agree with that.
Right, but I was always told to stop at yes, so, we'll stand by and we'll go from there.
Mr. Lawrence had a comment.
And I just want to mention, I appreciate the board and the support for this initiative. I actually think there might have been a typo on that agenda item. There might-
What should it be?
I think that might have been a 4. But in all seriousness, you know, we work very hard to be fiscally responsible. And we typically take personnel matters through the budget process. This is just because of the circumstances, more of an emergency situation. We need people on hand right now. And if this doesn't do the trick, we're certainly willing to come back to you and ask for more. And I would anticipate when we go into the 21-22 budget process, we're certainly going to be looking seriously at our technology department.
Can I clarify one thing, please? And I might have misunderstood. The devices are CARES Act funded. These bodies would be through the general fund. They are recurring. Keep in mind that the state has not finalized its budget. They're back in Columbia this month. And whenever we approved our original budget back in May, we said, all right, we fully expect to come back this fall and propose some amendments to the board. So these 2 positions would be captured in those amendments, but they are Fund 1 positions. They're not CARES funding.
Thank you for that clarification. I did misunderstand that.
Yes.
I think Mr. Green and then Mr. Smith again.
Thank you. Mr. Pensil brought up a point I'd just like to clarify. If we approve this tonight, and this is immediate need, what do you, whoever wants to answer this, estimate hiring process? When are we looking at having these 2 folks if this is approved? Given the time that it took to get folks beforehand.
Sure, so, the positions do have to post for 7 days, under board policy, so we have those 7-day posting period. You know, I believe our applicant pool, was decent in the last round, of looking. He's giving me the so-so. So, you know, I'm hopeful that we'll be able to move quickly after that 7-day, posting period. I would be absolutely lying if I said I knew definitively day 8, we're gonna have solid qualified candidates to extend offers to, but it would absolutely be a priority.
Well, I hear 7 weeks basically from last time, and that just concerns me if it's immediate 6-7 weeks. If it opened up in July and we just got them a week or 2 ago. I mean, granted, a lot going on, but that answers my
But, yeah,
question. That's,
there are a lot of things that can impact the timing of that, so from initial screening to the department's ability to conduct interviews, and individual needing to turn in a 2-week notice where they are.
Sure.
And then coming in, so it can add up. Certainly 7 weeks is longer than we would want, any, time to fill to look like. But with mitigating circumstances, I think that our goal would be to do that much quicker, provided Don and his team can, find the time in their schedules to conduct interviews, and
sure.
we would work together with them.
Yeah, you got a lot on your plate already too. While I have the pulpit, I'll just speak to our friends in the legislature that we would love to have some finalized budget numbers sooner rather than later, if y'all are listening.
Mr. Smith and then Dr. Bradley. Did you have something, Mr. Smith?
No.
Dr. Bradley, go ahead.
The most calls I've received since school opened, most of them are positive about the hybrid model, but I have had a number of calls about technological problems, which I don't know how to answer. You know, but you know, like if you get more than 3 devices operating at one time, they drop, that kind of thing. Piggybacking on Mr. Crane here, if we have a pool of applicants that are available, who've already been screened, already been looked at, and they are acceptable, the board can vote it would take a unanimous vote, but we could vote to, make an exception to the policy and hire those people immediately. If we wanted to extend the 2 to 4. You know, personally, I'm not big on hiring more people. But I think if there's any area in the district office that needs more people, it's technology. So I would not be adverse to going to 4 tonight if that's better plan than going to 2 and doing 2 more later. I'm not trying to tell them what to do, but I am trying to really, express a willingness to go ahead and boost the number if that's gonna help get us off and running to a better,
Good, Ms. Hart.
Sure. So policy GDF, support staff hiring, does allow us the opportunity to determine whether a posting is necessary when it's a mid-year vacancy. It actually says that the board has already authorized the superintendent or his or her designee to fill such vacancies for the remainder of the school year in which the vacancy occurs. The superintendent or his or her designee may determine whether advertising the vacancy is necessary, or whether the positions may be filled through some other means. You know, we certainly try to hold true to that 7-day posting period to be as consistent as possible, to allow individuals the opportunity to apply, so it's appropriately advertised and communicated, and not, you know, posted for a day or pulled. We would absolutely look at the applicant pool from those that we recently hired to determine if there were any additional viable candidates that were still available that Mr. Pensil and his team were interested in, but would move as quickly as absolutely possible.
You wouldn't have to re-advertise if we were drawing from the pool.
Correct, we would not have to.
You advertise for the position, I mean, the job description's the same, the position's
Yes.
the same, all we're doing is changing the number of those positions.
That is correct. We do have that ability. Our standard protocol is to post for 7 days to meet that requirement. But we would certainly discuss with Mr. Pensil and review the prior applicant pool to determine if there were any viable applicants there. We would make every effort, to move as quickly as possible, staying in adherence with policy, and ensuring that we have the best candidate.
Mr. Lyon, could I ask, Mr. Lawrence for what he thinks is best? You know, give us a recommendation, whether you'd like to change the 2 to 4, or leave it alone.
I think Ms. Pensil may want to have some say something on that.
I mean, I have to look at what the recommendations are from the technology department. Mr. Pensil, do you feel comfortable with 2, or if the board is willing to extend that to 4 positions, is that will that substantially help your cause? moving forward?
4 would be obviously much better than 2. 10 would be great, obviously. You know, they say shoot for the stars, land on the moon,
Yeah.
so 2 would definitely help. But like you know, Dr. Murphy said, the number that we're adding on is exponential. It's not going away. It's not like we're, you know, going to add these 10,000 and then they just disappear in a year or 2. It's a yearly thing where maintenance, and the type of maintenance we're doing is a lot different. Laptops are a lot longer to maintain. Takes a lot longer to maintain than an actual desktop. Desktop, you pop it open, you do some work in it, you're done. You got to take screws out of laptops. So that's these type of positions here we're looking at. Computer technicians are more of a level 1 technician, where we can get boots on the ground to start repairing. And like Dr. Murphy said, we're looking at implementing tomorrow, sometime midday, a phone call where parents can call in to get help immediately. Right now, we're having an email line where they're emailing it in, but we're up to about 200 emails. We can't keep up. We answer one, it just keeps coming in and coming in. So we're going to implement a phone line where a parent can get an immediate person. They know they're getting help immediately. Right now, we're emailing somebody, and you know, it's like it goes to Cyberland. You know, like I didn't hear back for 4 hours. Did they get my email? I'm going to email again. We're going to put a phone tree in where it goes into a person, it goes into a queue. If they can't handle it at level 1, it goes up to a level 2, and they'll enter it in our work order system where it becomes available for the entire staff to see, not just an email account. So 4 would be great. We can have people man it. We can have people maintain. You know, next week we got 7,000 student devices coming in. That's a big implementation. We got 1,000 teachers sitting in the warehouse that we're deploying to AI teachers that we've already done. We're deploying to high school teachers, we're applying to middle school teachers, deploying to middle school teachers, and all elementary teachers will be getting them also. Those 1,000 haven't arrived yet. So I said, this is an ongoing battle. It's not something that's coming and going. 2 is great, but we can definitely take 4. The pool that we had, we did have some other good applicants in there. You know, so I knew there was at least 2 in there that we could hire almost straight away. Mr. Crane, you had mentioned why it took so long. We had to go through a two-phase deployment, or a two-phase advertisement there is what it was. We didn't find what we wanted in the first time, so we actually advertised for another additional 2 weeks. And then it was in the middle of summer, we had a lot of vacations going on at that time, and we just couldn't get the staffing. You know, you either require a certain panel, we didn't have enough people to interview at that time. So that's why it took a little bit longer here. If we could advertise as soon as tomorrow, I think we could have people on board by the end of September at the latest, which would be great.
Well, based on that, then I would certainly amend my recommendation to 4 computer technicians.
Mr. Longman, I'd make a motion that we approve 4 positions for IT.
Second.
All right, so it's been moved and seconded that we approve 4 computer technicians. Any other discussion on that? I saw Mr. Smith had his hand up.
Yes, but we can vote, and I can ask afterwards if you like.
Okay, no problem. Okay, so any other discussion on the change of the motion? Ms. Jackson, did you have a question?
No, just seconded.
Okay. All right, so it's been moved and seconded that that item now will say consideration for 4 additional computer technicians. All right, all those in favor of that, raise your hand. Any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay. All right. Go ahead, Mr. Smith.
Mr. Vincent, I know you said there was 2 that you could see going ahead and getting right away. Would you be comfortable with looking at getting, or would you be more comfortable with reopening that back up and hire all 4?
I would be comfortable looking again at the applicants, and if I feel like they did meet our qualifications, going ahead without advertising, and then maybe the additional 2 we would advertise. I think we interviewed 5 last time, and 2, you know, there was some debate on everybody. So I feel like 2 for sure, we knew we could hire right away without having to advertise, but I would like, you know, we'd have to have, you know, for 4, I think we definitely have to advertise again.
Okay. Well, I kind of felt like, because I was picking up on some vibes up here that may need to open it back up.
Yeah. For 4, we would have to. For 2, we could hire almost immediately with Ms. Hart's approval.
Mr. Lawrence had a comment.
Mr. Spencer, one more thing. Dr. Bradley mentioned hotspots and some families who, with multiple children, it would struggle a little bit. How many reasonably can a hotspot handle?
Yeah, so today Ms. Glover came to me, and there was a family of 4 and a family of 5. They had 5 kids in the household and 4 kids. We deployed a second one to those households. The state is only providing 1 per household. Anything above that, we're gonna have to pay for a monthly charge, which is, I think there's been a budget for that. But it depends. When they're all on doing just straight internet work, 3, 4, 5, probably fine. Kind of like at your home. You probably have multiple devices at home and don't have a problem. When they start streaming through Microsoft Teams or some type of video conferencing, you start getting 3, you're gonna start seeing some bandwidth issues on those hotspots. The other thing we saw today was, although these are unlimited data hotspots, Verizon says they're unlimited. Once they hit 5 gig, they start throttling them to 1 meg. So we had a lot of users calling in today, like, our internet hotspot's not working. Well, little did they tell us that they start throttling at 5. So of course we called the state and they bumped it up to 10 terabytes, which is, you're never gonna hit 10 terabytes. But they had a policy in place. So 3, to answer your original question, probably 3 would be max. And then after that point, I would say that they need to get in touch with us and we can deploy more.
So Dr. Bradley will take care of those as they come up.
My problem was 3.
Mr. Crane, go ahead.
As a follow-up to that, when that phone bank goes live, can we get the phone number for that so we can share that?
Yeah, we're gonna post it up on the website, and I might have a bounce back email on the AI support account, which we currently use, that will bounce back, you know, thank you for your email. We've implemented a phone number, here's the phone number. And then I believe we'll probably do an email blast, at least tell all the Aiken Innovate students, parents, through email or a phone call, that this is the way to get support from this point forward. So yes, we can, and I can tell you what it is right now if we want to know what it is, but we have it already. It's just not up and quite running yet, but it's 803-641-2642.
If you call it right now, it may not work, but.
Well,
Can you repeat that?
Yeah, it's us, 803-641-2642.
Dr. Murphy, Mr. Pincel, on behalf, and Mr. Trex, on behalf of the board, we appreciate all the efforts too with respect to this, getting these devices online and answering questions. We realize it's probably an unsurmountable task, but, we appreciate all the efforts getting through and everything too, so. Ms. Jackson, go ahead.
I have a question, I have a comment, and can you please forgive me if I'm out of order, but I just kind of think
No, you're
it's
good.
appropriate.
You're good.
I had asked to read an email earlier, and actually it's about Mr. Pincel, so I would like them to hear.
Okay, well,
if
we're
you
on
don't
that
mind.
section now, so that's
Okay,
fine.
great. I received an email from a parent today, and I just wanted to read it to you. Ms. Jackson, I want you to know I am just now leaving the district office a happy parent, I may add. Don went above and beyond for my daughter and myself to have a better understanding of all the search engines, applications, and other necessities for my daughter to have an easy transition with this new virtual learning system. Even though I know he is spread thin on time, he still made time to make sure we left with a full understanding of these applications. I can't thank you enough for taking the time to help my daughter today, Don. You, and she was talking about being you and I are both wonderful, Don. You all are doing a great job. I know that it is a tedious task at this point, but I want to tell you well done as well. Thank you for today.
Well, thank you very much, we appreciate that. That's great. Thank you, Ms. Jackson, for reading that too. So we went on to individual board members unknowingly there. And we did vote on the other thing, so we're good. So, anyone else with individual board members? I think that's the only thing that I had there. All right, moving on to office of superintendent, Mr. Lawrence.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. First thing we want to share with you is our 4K through first grade plans for computer-assisted instruction, and that's at minimum reading aids. I'm going to ask Ms. Glover to share some information with you on that.
Thank you. Good evening, Chairman Liner, members of the board, Mr. Lawrence. So we wanted to share with you this evening some information regarding Edmentum, which is our new CAI program, Computer Assisted Instruction Program for grades 4K through first grade, and also Reading Eggs, which is owned by Edmentum. So we have an early learning task force that began last September, and the role of the task force really was twofold. One, the task force was being used to select a universal screener as required by Act 213, which many refer to it as the dyslexia legislation. So the law requires that a universal screener be administered 3 times a year. So we were administered a waiver for this past school year, and we used things that we already had in place, such as our kindergarten report card, F&P, foundational reading assessment. Those were the tools we used for K through first grade. And we were told, as was the rest of the state, that waivers would not be allowed for this coming year. So we had to choose from a group of 8 assessments for the universal screener. So we knew we needed this team to help us decide what assessment we would use. The second thing that we asked this learning task force to help us do was to choose a computer-assisted instruction program to replace our old program, which was Waterford. And so this group of teachers, administrators, 48 people, and this is the group makeup, we wanted to have them assist us with choosing that program. So as you can see, 10 4K teachers, those were 2 per area, 2 4K teachers per area. Those were selected after the Universal Screener Task Force got started because 4K wasn't involved in universal screening, so we added the 4K group later on in our meetings. Then we had 10 kindergarten and 11 first grade teachers. Those were teachers selected by their peers. We asked principals to go back to the schools and have kindergarten teachers choose their kindergarten representative and first grade to do the same. And so the principals chose which grade level they were going to have for their school as a representative, and then the teachers themselves chose the person in their group to represent them. 3 literacy coaches, 2 elementary principals, 6 of our content specialists here at the district office, and 6 district administrators. So when we talked about program selection, we had virtual meetings. These were supposed to occur in March when we were looking at CAI programs, and as you know, COVID happened. So it got put on hold, and we knew it needed to take place though. So we did have virtual meetings in May, and then our task force members and our vendors received our rubric that we would use in advance so they could review it. And then after we had those meetings in May, the vendors gave our teachers demo accounts for them to review and to give feedback. And the programs that we evaluated are those listed below. MobiMax, of course, Admentum, which includes those additional programs Reading Eggs, Express, Fast Phonics, and ExactPath, which is our current program in 2nd through 8th grade. So you've probably heard Admentum before. 2nd through 8th grade has been using it this year as their 3rd year. And ScoopPad and iReady. So I sent today to board members a sample rubric, which included these items that were scored. We used a similar rubric for our universal screener. And so you can see it's about ease of use, reports that are available. So each person scored each of those items as we reviewed the programs, and then submitted their rubrics to our curriculum technology specialist who worked really and coordinated this. And so Ashley Logan is that person, and she did a marvelous job coordinating all of this. So some teachers didn't submit their rubric. I think we had a few kindergarten teachers who didn't submit. We did have a couple of teachers who submitted zeros for all programs except the program they liked. But there were just a few of those. And then when we pulled out the results, the outcome was the same. Admentum was the program on top. So the Admentum package included Reading Eggs, which is a program that includes 3 smaller programs, Fast Phonics, Reading Eggs, and Reading Express. And so those different programs, Fast Phonics, of course, focusing on phonics, teaching students, beginning sounds, putting words together. And then Reading Eggs continues to develop their reading skills. And then once we get to Reading Express, it's about comprehension. So versus learning how to read, it's reading to learn. So ExactPath is, again, our program used in 2 through 8, and we added that for grades K and 1. Reading Eggs was one that was really focused on 4K. The 4K teachers liked that one better than any other program that we saw. I'll be honest with you, it's difficult to find an early learning program that has those kinds of things that we were looking for. But ExactPath aligns to our content area standards, which was a huge criteria of ours. We wanted to make sure that it aligned to our state content standards. And then all of these have that diagnostic adaptive assessment, so learning in the program is targeted to a child's specific needs. The cost for Admentum, you can see, is $91,482 for the licenses required to serve our students in those grade levels. And we only chose to go with Admentum for 1 year. And the reason being, Admentum, like I mentioned, this is our 3rd year for grades 2 through 8. So we'll be doing a program evaluation for Admentum for those grade levels, since we'll be finishing up our 3rd year. But we got a cheaper cost because we already have the program. And we'd like to, because of how things happened this year with going through school closure and viewing things virtually, which we didn't feel like was the best way to have teachers together, get input. We'd like to evaluate and see what our teachers think about the program this year as we use it, and see if we want to continue it next year. So In that cost is included 7 2-hour virtual Reading Eggs trainings, and they were offered August 17th and 18th. 7 2-hour virtual Reading Eggs trainings, they'll be offered during the month of October. We'll have administrator and literacy coach training that'll be offered virtually. We haven't determined a date for that yet. And then 23 on-site training days where a trainer will actually come and provide on-site training for our teachers. So while we're in the hybrid model and kids are 2 days face-to-face, 3 days at home, we're really preaching that teachers should be focused on explicit direct instruction and not taking time away, although the computers are very important to supplement core instruction. Cleaning the computers takes time. So while we're not saying they can't use them in their classrooms, if they're able to do that with the 6 computers and not have to worry so much about going over there and cleaning, we don't want to put that extra burden on the teachers right now to make sure that those computers get cleaned after each use, because we want them to focus on, you have those children in your classrooms for 2 days a week, please focus on explicit direct instruction with them. We're hoping as we move back to 5 days a week that we'll be able to use the computers more. We're just watching what happens with health and safety, and that's the most important thing right now. As all of our other computer-assisted instruction programs, these are available online. So we realize that there is still a technology gap and some of our students wouldn't be able to use those at home. There are printable resources that teachers can provide for students to take home as supplemental materials. You know, as soon as we get our computers that we can put in the hands of kids, we'll make sure that they have that access at home. So our Aiken Innovate students do have this access. We're having a few issues with importing student names into Reading Eggs right now, and we're working on those problems. So with Don Pensil's extra 4 people, he will be able to help us get that. And then also members of the Early Learning Task Force. So I'll just be honest, this was not our main priority this summer. We were working on getting us back to school safely, so this was not a priority. So we will have our teachers get with us both on the Universal Screener implementation plan and the Computer Assisted Instruction implementation plan, so they have a voice and can help us with the implementation plan for the year. So I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Dr. Bradley first and Mr. Nesson.
This is your recommendation to replace the Waterford program.
Yes, sir.
Why did we give up on the Waterford program?
That was a decision of the board.
It wasn't a recommendation of administration. I mean, the board decided to do it. This happened before I was on the board. I'm just asking a question. I must be getting into something I shouldn't be getting into. A lot of things happened before I got here. The other question, or it's more of a comment, I think probably one of the best ways to evaluate programs is to let the teachers vote on. You know, you set it up so you've got 1 year to try it. If we go with this program, I think the end of year evaluation should be that each teacher who's used the program submit a vote and comments about what's good about it, what's bad about it, before you make a decision to add it on.
Mr. Nesson, go ahead.
Yeah, so thank you very much for that information, I appreciate it. So the Edmentum also serves as a screener, right? That's what you're saying?
No, sir.
Okay.
I'm sorry, we're talking about 2 separate things. So the Edmentum program is number 2 on their task force responsibilities. The first was FastBridge is what we have chosen as our universal screener.
Okay, I just want to make sure I got that straight.
So sorry.
No, that's fine, I just want to make sure I got that straight. I'll just sum it up. So like the last slide you had on there, I know exactly where we're at. I don't think this is particularly the priority. And it's great, it can be maybe a good resource for folks that do have devices and use it at home. And I'll just say it, is I understand one of the issues with the previous program was the implementation and how much time you spent on it during class, and so forth. And I just don't want to get into that again, because I would agree with those comments. And what we're not hearing, I guess I want to make sure we set this back up to hear more later. I don't want to set ourselves up for, basically, with what's happened where we missed at least the last third of the school year last year, we're starting off in a hybrid model. I don't think it doesn't seem like you are, but I don't think we should be pushing this into classroom time. I'm very concerned about that. And if it's a useful resource for people that are home to reinforce stuff, that sounds good, but I'm very concerned about classroom time.
Yes, sir, you're absolutely right. And as Ms. Glover mentioned, our focus is direct instruction. So with having students in class 2 days a week and then giving them remote opportunities for the other 3 days of the week, we want teachers spending every possible minute in direct instruction. So you're right. If students have the ability to use the program at home and they have that access, and as we move forward further into the school year, we'll be able to provide access for more students. But right now, our priority is on direct instruction from teacher to student.
And I guess I'm saying I would keep that for the rest of the school year. I'm not, that's just where my mind's at right now. So I guess the request, I appreciate what you shared with us tonight, and I assume this is already paid for, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, with a 1-year contract. I just like to hear more later before we get any further. That's what I'm asking for.
Absolutely.
Mr. Milton, go ahead, and then Mr. Crane.
Thank you, Ms. Glover. I wanted to tell you, first of all, I think, from what I understand, that we're headed down the right road. I appreciate the effort that's gone into this, but what I really liked was you presenting the members of the people that made the decision, and that you brought in the professionals, the teachers, the literacy coaches, the content interventionists, all of that. I do like the idea of revisiting it. I think it's worth looking at, a year from now when we see how it's doing. But I had a question. I saw that the number was 91,000 and something for licenses for all students grade 4 K through 1. How does that compare to the numbers for Waterford? Do you recall?
Waterford was an expensive product.
Yep.
It was. I can get that for you. If I'm remembering correctly, I know it was over $1,000 per student. But I need to get it for you. But Waterford was expensive.
Okay, so this is.
But
just asking-
Waterford did have kind of an edge in the market for 4K, especially in 4K at home learning.
Okay.
So there just aren't many programs on the market like that do both reading and math.
Okay, thank you.
Good, Mr. Crane.
Thank you, Ms. Glover. Very, very good information. I just had a couple of questions that popped up as you were presenting some of that. With the training dates that were listed, with the ones that have already happened, were those well attended by the teachers that'll be, or not? I mean, I know that we've had a lot on our plate, right?
Right.
So I'm just curious.
So I'm looking out at Ms. Dove, maybe she has that information.
So it was facilitated as part of our back to school with the other, so it probably was not as highly attended as some of the other things, but I think that simply was the priority.
Mhm.
Teachers were more worried about learning how to use Microsoft Teams and school
Which is
issues.
fair.
So in combination with those, I don't think it was as highly attended as we would have liked. But we do have the on-site days that we're looking at scheduling in terms of them coming in on those Fridays to work with teachers, or offering some other virtual options. So it's not like a one and done. At this point, we've offered some, and we'll continue to do that as we go forward.
And the on-site will be on school campuses or?
On school campuses.
Okay.
And some of those are more of coaching days where we have small groups of teachers and individuals coming in and helping.
Okay. Next question, these have nothing to do with each other, just the overall topic. We're talking about, Uncle Sam's not gonna grant any waivers, under the act, and sounds like we're good to go.
Right.
Are there any issues because of school closure and COVID that might butt up to that somehow?
So, Kate helped me with the law. So in the first 10 days of school, the General Assembly passed Act 142, which said in the first 10 days of school, we have to administer the universal screener, which Fastbridge is the one we've chosen. Our kindergarten and first grade teachers are, they have a lot on their plates. You know, Mickey mentioning that that may not have been as well attended. We have Fastbridge training for them as well. So those leap days, you know, many of our schools were trying to get that accomplished face-to-face with their students, because one of the things that we've learned is that Fastbridge, which has to be done during the first 10 days, which is our universal screener, Fastbridge, on an approved list by the State Department, because we don't get a waiver. Those students who are in Aiken Innovate have to do that face-to-face. So there's just a lot on their plate, and nothing's being waived at this point. There's no grace being given with regard to that law.
Well, we don't see any issue with us complying with it with everything going on, I guess.
So it's challenging to get everybody tested in the first 10 days, particularly when our students are in hybrid and 2 days a week. You know, they have essentially 4 days to get this done. The reporting for that with the State Department is not until the end of the month, and we're hoping some grace is going to be extended with doing that. Now, we are trying our best. We're telling our schools, you know, it's the first 10 days. That's what the law says. Are there going to be consequences for that? I don't think so.
Well, hopefully, someone at the state level is watching and will hear that. Final question. I understand the logic behind doing the 4K through first for a year, because we have the 2 through 8, and it's 3-year period. With the cost they granted us for the single year, is that essentially the full gamut program cost? So when assuming the year ends, so we're done with 1 year, we're done with 3 year at the same time, is it essentially the same break point as we'll receive if we do all of it?
I couldn't speak to that yet. I can investigate that with the company and
That's a little bit down the road, but
Right.
you know, I gotta ask about the cost.
Right,
so.
you can help us negotiate too.
I'll be happy to get on the phone. I'll be more than happy to.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Ms. Clover?
One thing, the nice thing about the end of a contract, Mr. Crane, is that a lot of companies will be bidding, and our teachers will have a lot to choose from.
So we'll plan on getting an update, you know, maybe in December or January or something like that. See how the implementation and everything's going on. Because I think a couple folks have asked for that.
No, I would kind of like to know what we're going to be asking of people and teachers, and how much time we're going to be spending on it during classroom time before you do it.
Well, once we have the teachers together and they can help us develop an implementation plan, we'll be more than happy to bring that.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
Back
at
and
this,
share
at
with
this
all.
point, I'm not asking them to use any class time.
Right.
Okay.
And we reiterated that to principals this past week to make sure.
Mr. Mulder, good.
Quick comment on that. I think what Mr. Nessing is mentioning is well worded, and it sounds like you're on top of it, because everything that I remember being an issue for Waterford was all implementation issues. So by looking at that with the teachers and letting them kind of give us some suggestions, I think we'll probably head off a lot of issues, and you're on top of that, so thank you.
Thank you. Good, Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Ms. Glover. Good job. Next thing I wanted to mention to you was the first week of school, and now the first week plus a couple of days of school. Overall, we had an outstanding start to school. Face-to-face classes had very few concerns. It was kind of a dream going around and visiting schools. I visited half a dozen or so again today, and have had really good visits, good conversations with teachers, students, and with administrators. We've had good press coverage. Thank you, Aiken Standard, and to all of the television outlets who covered our opening. Aiken Innovate, our virtual model, for a brand new initiative, it is progressing remarkably well. Of course, we've had a few issues that we've had to work through Connectivity continues to be an issue. We talked about that tonight. Support for teachers, support for parents, students, and devices. Those continue to be an issue, and we took a huge step toward resolving that this evening. So we certainly appreciate the board taking that step. Meeting platform, which is Microsoft Teams, it's had a few glitches in it. We've worked through a lot of those. We're going to continue to work through those, so it's more user-friendly for both our teachers and for our families. We've had some confusion over attendance in virtual. And as Ms. McCarthy shared with you at the last school board meeting, it's an unfamiliar approach, looking at what the state requirements are and making that fit. It's going to take some time for everybody to get a handle on exactly how we deal with attendance in virtual schools. So we just ask for patience as we go through those things. As Ms. Glover and Ms. Dove mentioned, regardless of the instructional model, students are required to complete the state universal screening during these first 10 days of school, and that's certainly well underway, and we're progressing well with that. I can't really say enough, and I mentioned this last week, the amazing team that we have making these things happen. Don was talking about nights and weekends, and the lights are on here all the time. The lights are on in people's home offices, dining room tables, and bedrooms all the time right now. People are working constantly. People are dealing with phone calls. People are dealing with emails. People are helping parents through some of the issues that they're dealing with. Just some of the individuals who are here in this room: Jeannie Glover, Mickey Dove, Kate Olin, Latoya Wiley, Phyllis Gamble, Bert Postel, the other EDs, Julie Reveille, Mindy Tucker. The volume, it's unimaginable, the volume of calls that come in and the requests for support and help that is being provided to our students and their families and to our teachers. There just aren't the words that can adequately say how much I appreciate them and the impact that they're having on the lives of our families. So I just appreciate everything that everybody is doing, the way that instruction, technology, and operations, everyone is working together to make things happen, and I absolutely appreciate it. So thank you for all of that. You know, we do continue to receive some requests, and I just want to mention this, and requests to change models. We've had a number of deadlines way back in July. We extended that deadline. We ended up with a waiting list with close to 400 students on it. We were able, just before school started back, to accommodate all of those. It's just real important for us to know that as parents request a change in what we've put in place, it truly creates a hardship on not only the school, but on other families. Because there comes a point, if enough students shift from one model to another, it's going to require a change in staffing. That's going to impact maybe students who are in Aiken Innovate who have to be farmed out to other teachers. Those that are left because we've got to take a teacher out of Aiken Innovate and put in face-to-face classroom. Another thing, the same thing can happen in the reverse. Enough students from a brick and mortar classroom leave that it doesn't make sense to overcrowd a virtual classroom. We've got to move a teacher into that. So it's very important for our families to understand that when we ask them to make a commitment of a semester, we didn't just arbitrarily do that. I mean, we really needed our families to make a commitment. And so, you know, we know that there are going to be some emergency situations and some hardships that come up, and we're going to certainly look at those. But barring that, and we even extended last week, with it being the first week of school, we did a lot of shifting. I think Mr. Postel's back there and Ms. Campbell, they were really on shift mode all week last week. when frankly, I would rather have them been in schools instead of on the phone and in front of a computer and with spreadsheets in front of them shifting students. So I'm just gonna make just a request publicly. I'm asking that everyone honor that semester commitment, and we can focus on teaching your students, and whatever model you've selected, we can focus on getting the job done for them. So, again, a good first week back at school. So I appreciate everybody's support. The last thing I want to mention to you is our Back to School Advisory Committee. Mr. Postel is doing a good job there facilitating that group. They're meeting weekly. They're looking at data, state data, county data, school data, information that we have from our nursing supervisor, information that we have from human resources. All of that information goes into the conversations that group has and the decisions that they make. As of this past Wednesday, the committee made a recommendation that we continue monitoring and that we maintain the plan in its current form. Now, that plan in its current form has us with obviously the two models, one model being virtual, the other model being our transition toward traditional school, with middle and high school continuing in the hybrid model of 2 days on site, 3 days remote, with elementary continuing on that hybrid model for the first 3 weeks of school, and then as the plan that was approved states, then we would move to a 5-day-a-week modified schedule for elementary schools. So that's the recommendation, that based on the data that the committee has right now, that's where we stand. So happy to answer any questions or entertain any thoughts, and certainly Mr. Postel is here to answer any specific questions about the committee.
Go ahead, Ms. Jackson.
The returning to 5 days for the elementary, I had previously requested or asked that also includes special needs. Is that still gonna happen?
Yes, we can make that happen. I think that was actually in the motion that was approved.
Okay.
Yeah, so yes, that's something that would happen, scheduled to automatically happen on September 21st.
So I'll just make a statement here. Oh, go ahead, Mr. King. Mr. Green, go ahead.
I want to step back to virtual attendance.
Okay, well, let me just make a statement because we're kind of in the same thing right here. So the way I see it is, unless there's some great deviation from what the advisory committee tells us, we'll be going to 5 days a week with elementary on the 21st of September. And we don't meet between now and then as a board. We do have next week that town hall meeting. So unless we see some data that's drastically different than what we're seeing now, that's the plan. And if we have to deviate from that plan, then we'll have a special call meeting to take a vote on something. But, we've already voted and given Mr. Lawrence the authority to do that. So that's kind of the plan. I just wanted to make sure everyone understood that. So. All right. Go ahead, Mr. Crane.
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence. I just want to step back. I don't want to interrupt the flow with a question. As far as the virtual attendance, I've had a lot of parents concerned with some of the issues that have been talked about with Teams, Microsoft Teams and whatnot, and dropping out and things like that in this first several days. Can you speak to that? Because there's a lot of concern that their child has dropped out halfway through or wasn't able to get on until halfway through, and a lot of parents are just concerned that their kids who are doing their best effort in the midst of the new technology and whatnot to get on, that their child may still be absent even though they were able to pick up a lot from the class.
Right, we really don't want technical difficulties to result in truancy issues for our students. I had a conversation with Ms. McCarthy this afternoon, and we do need to have a consistent protocol. I mean, my thought was a parent can't get on, a student can't get on, pick up the phone and call the school and tell them I'm trying to get on. In my mind, I've got a clipboard by the phone and I'm logging those things. But we certainly need to have, but that's just my mind. I'm not saying that's the solution to the problem. But, we do have to have a method in place, to ensure that, issues beyond the student's control and don't result in a truancy problem for that student and for that family. So we're certainly looking at that, and it's gonna take some folks putting their heads together to make sure that we have a workable plan that will work across the board, that'll work for, elementary, which certainly has a lot more face-to-face synchronous online instruction than high school has.
That's sufficient for me, thank you.
Go ahead, Dr. Bradley, and then Mr.
Is it possible to have an online roll call?
Yes, and the system's gonna log students who log in, so if the student logs in and they're there, there's a record of it.
Why isn't that sufficient?
Well, if a student has trouble logging on, if she can't even get on, then
you
that's
miss the
one
phone
where
call
we've gotta,
and-
yeah.
But, okay, I just prefer some method like that rather than tying it to the academic.
Mr. Moulton, go ahead.
Mr. Lawrence, this is probably addressed to you more than anyone. I think, although we agreed about it, and I still support the back to school, committee, the advisory committee, and their recommendations. But I wanna think that we probably wanna put a little bit more thought than just accept, that without a special called meeting, and I'll tell you why. Although the numbers look great right now, they couldn't look better. I do think we're in this very unique situation that COVID has caused. I think it warrants just one little extra degree of a look before we just say everybody goes back to the 100% in elementary 5-day-a-week school attendance. And the reason I say that, and the reason I bring it up, if you'd have asked me this 4 or 5 weeks ago, I would have said, no, let's get back, let's get everybody back. And the reason I'm saying this now, and I think we owe it another look, is I've heard from 6 staff members this week and 1 board member, that they really are thinking we ought to look at, before we move from a 50% hybrid model to a 5-day-a-week schedule, we really ought to look hard at what's gone into the hybrid schedule, how well that's going, not just the DHEC numbers that the back-to-school committee's looking at. And that said, I'm still not saying which way I'll vote, I don't know, I just think I think rather than just leave here and say it's gonna automatically happen, I think we owe it another look, that's all.
Well, then, if that's the consensus of the board, then we better pick a date to do it, because we're gonna run out of time between now and the 21st of September.
Mr. Chair, I had y'all together at a town hall meeting on the 15th. We could schedule something, either before or after that town hall meeting. It would, ideally, it would be a one-topic called meeting. So I think we could do it in a limited amount of time.
The town hall is on the 20th.
On the 15th.
That's next week.
Go ahead, Mr.
Well, we could certainly have a business meeting at the town hall meeting, a brief business meeting if necessary. I'm sure the school could provide us with a room to meet in, or we could do it prior to the town hall.
Yeah, I don't wanna.
Whether it's an executive session or an open session, I imagine this is open session.
Yeah, this would be an open session.
Yeah, and I don't wanna keep people waiting, because we've already said 6
Well, let's do
o'clock.
it at the end.
Yeah, we'd have to do it at the end, I think, after we're done.
So,
I don't foresee this taking a significant amount of time. Either we're gonna have data that supports it, or we're gonna have data that doesn't support it.
Go ahead, Mr. Smith.
I want to follow up on what he was saying, because I was sitting here taking the same thing, and I agree. I'd like to see us revisit it for, I think our population expects us to do that too, from things I'm hearing as well. But I would like for us to be presented with significant evidence supporting it. Just, show us some numbers, be able to show us why we're ready to go, instead of just, say, saying, well, the numbers are looking good, so forth, so on. Let's kind of put some stuff, big bones out there so we can look at it. That may come from my nurse, whomever.
And we'll have everything that, that the committee is looking at available for you.
Go, Mr. Crane.
The only point I would bring up is we won't have 3 full weeks of the committee's reports on Tuesday, correct?
Yes, we've got, they're meeting for the 4th time, I think, this week.
So we'll have a
Third.
good bit of info. Okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Moore.
Just a quick comment, by the way, I know when I bring this up, this is certainly not a popular opinion among parents. I've heard from a number of parents, the opposite of what I'm asking. But the thing is, I think we've gone this far, and we said, let's look at the data. Well, let's look at the data again. And if we feel like the data's pointing everything looks good, everybody's just gonna have to understand it's time to go back to 5 days a week. But if the data doesn't look good, then we've got reason to have a discussion. So
Yeah.
that's all.
Yeah.
And can we look at the data too?
What data do you want to look at?
What they look at?
Yes, everything that the committee has, you will have as well.
Okay, I just want to caution us, we advertise 3 weeks. So I think that, and people have made plans, based on that 3 weeks for childcare and to meet their family's needs. And I don't have a problem looking at it again, I think that's the smart thing to do, to take one last look. But my opinion is just that it has to be something overwhelmingly, on the other side to change the decision we've already made. Because people have made plans to that, and that's what we're committed to. That's just my opinion.
I agree. I don't think anybody's questioning that.
Okay.
Let's make sure what we're doing is the right thing, in the right way, based on science.
Okay.
We didn't advertise it was gonna be a board decision. Let's make it a board decision.
I don't know that we did that, Dr. Brown.
We did.
I don't think so. I think we gave and I'd have to go back and really look, but I think what we did is we gave Mr. Lawrence the authority to do that, based on the advisory committee. That's what I thought we did. But that's fine. I don't have a problem looking at it. I think it's the smart thing to do, but that's my caution there, that, and we'll have to make a decision. People have to make plans, so Tuesday night, be ready to make a decision one way or the other. So, all right. Good. All right, any other discussion on that? All right, so we do need a executive session. So we need a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of considering the following matters in such order as the board deems appropriate. Employment matters, we have 2 administrative appointments, and then a legal briefing, legal advice on board attorney relations. Following the executive session meeting, the board will reconvene into regular session, announce the matters considered, and to take any actions as may be necessary. Do I hear a motion for that?
Make a motion.
All right, so I think we got multiple motions there.
Second.
So, a second. All those in favor, raise your hand. So let's try to meet there no later than 8 o'clock. All right, I think we got everyone. With employment matters and received a legal briefing on board attorney relations. So we have two motions to hear here. First one is administrative appointment for director of special programs. Do I hear a motion for that?
I make a motion that we accept the recommendation for Director of Special Programs.
So it's been moved and seconded that we accept the administration's recommendation for director of special programs. Any discussion on that? All those in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? That's unanimous. Kim? All right, the next one was the administrative appointment for director of communications and community partnerships. Do I hear a motion for that?
Move we accept the administration's recommendation.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded, we accept the administration's recommendation. Any discussion on that? All those in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? That's unanimous. Kim? All right, so I think that's all the action that we had to take from executive session. Just a reminder, Wagner Sally next week at 6 o'clock, we'll do the town hall meeting, and then after that, we'll have a meeting to discuss coming back to school on the 21st. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move we adjourn.
Second.
All right, so everyone in favor, raise your hand. I'm sure that's unanimous. All right, we'll see you all next Tuesday. Thank you.